Wonderful to see you again. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very honored to be here today.
You know, this is an opportunity for the community to learn about your journey and experience because often we don't know or understand what you've gone through, the different barriers, the many accomplishments and moments to celebrate. We don't talk about those enough. So today we're here to recognize you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So I wonder, what was your first taste of creativity?
Oh, great question. I'd have to really think back. I was born into a hearing family, and of course, I was also involved in the deaf community. I found myself involved in both worlds, but not really feeling understood either. I felt disconnected from both worlds. I had so much to express, but I felt I could not communicate it. It wasn't until high school where I found dance. Dance allowed me to communicate to both worlds and allowed me to be myself. It changed my life. I use dance to communicate and as a bridge to connect to both worlds.
Wonderful. I think it's not often that we have wonderful role models like you to show that as a deaf person, being deaf is just one part of your identity. And that may be how people see you on the surface, but overall, there are so many different layers to your identity. Your story is so important to share and put out into the world. I wonder, as a dancer yourself and a choreographer, you've seen a lot of different, resistance. And I mean, I don't understand why people don't like, or maybe they don't understand that deaf people can dance. We can be creative, we can express ourselves. Why do people still have that mental block? Why is that still a thing?
It is the fact that folks believe that dance depends on the ability to hear. From my events and interactions, dance is not dependent on the ability to hear. It starts from what you feel. Feelings inspire you to move. From the good days to the sad days, winning the lottery to celebrations, seeing old friends, or sharing time with loved ones, or even cooking in the kitchen. Those moments inspire you to move. So dance does not rely on the ability to hear. It's all from what you feel in your heart. Even if you don't know how to dance to a specific song, your body still wants to get up and move.
I read a newspaper article that said your first solo performance was in high school to Whitney Houston's song, I Will Always Love You.
Yes, that song, I Will Always Love You.
Right. Would you mind telling us about that experience?
Well, to preface it, I was the only deaf person in my class. My teacher realized that and encouraged me to go for it and create something from the heart with feeling. I was a bit hesitant, but I went with it. At the moment, I had picked Whitney Houston's song, I'll Always Love You. That song resonated with me so much. I also wanted to express to my peers that I will always love and care for them. As I began to move and sway, I felt thunder. I felt fire. I felt waves as I danced. Once I finished, I looked around and everyone was quiet. I asked, "What's wrong?" The students began to applaud. I was like, "Stop playing, for real?" The instructor asked, what was conveyed in Antoine's dance? The students said it felt cold, lonely, and dark. I was shocked because they were spot on. That moment saved my life. I thought I'd never have the ability to connect with both worlds. I was able to bridge a connection and make lifelong friends in the process.
I read that you used that dance as a teaching moment, as an educational tool, as you traveled around to different schools, organizations, events, and festivals, that you tried to use that moment to bring your deaf identity, your culture, and your whole self as a person to the table so that audiences may learn from it. And how did you know, or how did you realize that opportunity, the power in using your art to connect with your audience?
I'll share one of my favorite moments. I was teaching a ballet class, and I had a special moment with a 6-year-old student. I was teaching the class, and I noticed the student was crying. And I checked in on them, and she said she was fine, so I continued to teach the class. After I was done teaching, I went up to the student to ask if something happened. At this moment, I did not use any words, so I began to gesture and sign to ask if she had fallen or if another classmate had hit her. She responded with no words either, and she began to move her body to describe what happened. Her parents realized she was more comfortable communicating and expressing herself through her body language and movements. Surprisingly, that child was hearing. I hope folks understand that we are not limited to using our voice and that we can use our body to communicate. Our voice sometimes makes us feel trapped or stuck. Movement can help us communicate too. American culture focuses solely on being able to communicate through using our voice or our words. It should be built on a human-to-human connection and movement. From my travels, I've learned new movements and I make sure not to keep them to myself. I share the movements I've learned along the way.
So, I read about your amazing experiences of the people that you've danced with, the many cool companies that you've worked with. And I wonder, did you go to dance school first or did you join a dance company first?
I started in high school. Most professional dancers start dancing as young as 4 to 6 years old. When I started in high school, it was a whirlwind. I thought dancing was going to be so easy. I was buff and strong, so I thought I could do more than the girls. I was beat. They all did more push-ups than me. From there, I challenged myself to continue dancing. I got better and better as I tried to catch up to the girls. I thought I was much better than them. I was wrong.
Yeah, and I was reading about Misty Copeland starting as a teenager.
Yes, totally.
Somewhere about middle school, and then she just made it to ABT. So you're fine. Where do you get your ideas as a choreographer? Where do you get your ideas and inspiration from?
My dancers have important contributions and messages to share. The community also has a lot to share as well. I try to find those messages that folks are not really paying attention to. We try to figure out how to tell the story so that folks listen with their heart.
And I hope, will that project continue on tour or is it ending?
Yes, for the project, we recently finished our third leg. We performed in the United States, the UK, and in Russia. In Russia, we had over 800 people in attendance. As soon as the performance ended, I had a line of folks wanting to ask questions. Of course, I stayed to answer their questions. I was so grateful. It was nice not to get questions or reactions to the fact that deaf people can dance, but more questions related to the process and choreography. I was very thankful for that. I want folks to stop focusing on the medical view of deafness. We have so much more to say and to contribute.
You use that, deaf culture and ASL, as a teaching tool. That was just a comment.
I remember performing with the Savage Jazz Dance Company. I had a big solo that night. Once the show finished, I went up to my mom afterwards to ask her what she thought about the show. Suddenly, this big black guy came up to me and asked if I was deaf. I told him I was. Also, I want to note that I used to wear hearing aids before. So the guy mentioned that he had seen me before and remembered I had hearing aids. He said I had hearing aids just like his daughter, and when he saw me dancing, he realized that deaf people can have a future and can go into different careers. As he continued to talk, he started crying. My mom even nudged me and said, "Look, you made this grown man cry." His daughter was actually there too. Her dad even told me that he doesn't have to worry anymore because his daughter can have a future. I mean, that was just from watching my performance. It was shocking for me because I have never had anyone tell me that before. And this was a big, strong man crying, and it really hit me. But one thing that bothered me is that folks only recognize deafness when someone's wearing a hearing aid. It's important to keep in mind that there are other deaf and hard of hearing people that don't have hearing aids. I'm realizing it is critical to include sign language in my performances in order to keep deaf culture more visible.
Yeah, and you make ASL and deaf culture more visible because often a deaf person on their own looks like anyone else in the world until we start to sign, and then people's perspective shifts. Some hearing people are unfazed, where others feel sorry and offer pity. Why
We
is
don't need
that?
that
I mean,
pity.
it's like, I'm fine. You just don't know my story. You have no idea that I'm a very successful person.
Exactly.
It's so cool because that little girl looks up to you as a role model. And again, it's not often that we see POC talent out there right now.
Right, there are not many.
There is not a lot of deaf POC talent out there. And I hope that you as a role model using ASL will inspire many young people to create art as they watch your work. Yes, that is my goal. So next question. How does someone improve their craft as a dancer? Do you get feedback? Do you have support groups?
Receiving feedback can sometimes be scary. I'm sure there are folks out there who would say they do not like my work. I try to be neutral, and I have also learned not to take it personally. I've learned to accept different insights and feedback about my work. It can actually be very valuable and could help improve my craft. Also, not all feedback has to be accepted. If you are open to receiving feedback, be ready to get feedback that you may dislike. I encourage folks to keep in mind the reason why they're doing their work. Also, to be open and continue to make many mistakes.
And there's a lot that goes into it. Details, planning ahead, coming up with new ideas, working things out with other people. Yeah. And thinking about funding too. I get it.
Definitely. In terms of funding, we are always looking for opportunities and sponsorship. Often folks think, Antoine does so much, all with a smile, and they are so successful. I'm putting on everything with a smile because I feel like it's important that we do our best. We are always looking for funding opportunities and sponsorship. When we host our festivals, we want to be able to connect with our audience and to make them feel safe. With that being said, the audience may not know American Sign Language. In order to ensure clear communication, we provide interpreters, which could mean deaf interpreters, hearing interpreters, ASL interpreters, interpreters who provide international sign, Mexican Sign Language interpreters, or even Russian Sign Language interpreters. To ensure accessibility happens requires more expenses. When folks ask if deaf community members can get a discount, unfortunately we have to tell them no. We just have a lot of expenses to cover. I feel very honored to have worked with many artists. During my first year, everything was out of pocket, and I paid artists what I could. Often nothing in return for myself, as I wanted to ensure my team got something. I wanted to recognize and thank them for their time and work. The more funds I received, the more I could distribute to my team. At times, I have been encouraged to keep more profit, but I cannot help it. It's who I am. I want to ensure I can also give back to the artists as well. I'm hoping for more funding support in the future.
I hope so too. People can follow your dance company on Facebook and on your website. It has been wonderful to see you share your story. Thank you. So I have a few final questions for fun. This is a Deaf Spotlight thing. We like to wrap up these interviews with some fun questions. What's your favorite sign?
What is my favorite sign? That.
That. Okay. Least favorite?
Can't.
What's your deaf bing?
This right here.
What talent would you like to have?
Surprisingly, I've actually thought about developing another career. I was so nervous about having to decide on my next move. After some thought, I decided I can do both. I don't have to leave dancing behind.
What word or phrase would you like people to remember you by?
I'm here to serve my community, and I am passionate about helping others. So hopefully, once I've passed, folks can remember the service that I provided to the community.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining us.